Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome, welcome, welcome all to the Angry Vets Fantasy Football Podcast and Broadcast. Welcome to week 7. Hopefully, you guys survived that tumultuous week 6. It was tough, man. Golly. From the injuries to the players disappearing. You know, over the mass amount of years I've been playing fantasy football, I've had the luxury of not having a player get injured at the beginning of a game that I had starting. And then this year it finally happened. And oh, does it suck, man? It sucked. I had Marvin Harrison playing against the Indianapolis Colts this past weekend. And if you didn't know, now you know he went down in what I think was the first quarter, his second catch. It looked like he was going to have a pretty proficient game, man. It looked like he was getting off to a hard start, and then he makes a phenomenal catch, and Gold gets tackled, and he hits his head, and he goes to the blue tent. You know, we all hold our breath in the blue tent, and most players come out, and then they grab their helmet and run on the field. You're like, yeah, but he didn't come out for a long time. It was like drive after drive. And next thing I know, they were like, "Oh, Marvin Harrison is heading back to the locker room." I was like, "Oh no, it happened! It hit me," and it hurt, man. But I ended up pulling out the dub this week, so I hope you all did as well. Hopefully, you didn't have any players go down in the middle of the game. I know there was a couple of players that happened to. One being Calvin Ridley, who I am done with. You guys saw my article in the group or my post in the group. I'm done with Calvin Ridley. I don't want anything to do with him. I know he left the game with an injury. He has a hamstring injury, and he's possibly going to be out for a couple of weeks, if not longer. I'm done with him. I don't want anything to do with him. I'm good. And that brings me to my next point. Waiver wire pickups for this week. And yes, we are starting off with his actual teammate, who I think has an opportunity to start stepping up. He can have a pretty significant role going forward with the Calvin Ridley news, but I am still very hesitant about his quarterback situation. Cam Ward is leaving a lot on the table, man. I'm just not sold on Cam Ward. I wasn't sold on him coming into the draft, and I'm definitely not sold on him. I think Cam Ward. I put it in the article about Calvin Ridley yesterday. I think Cam Ward was he's the epitome of a quarterback that needs to come in and sit behind a veteran a couple years, learn the ins and outs of the NFL, and then take off from there. There's a ton of potential there, but I just think that he needs to sit a couple of seasons to learn the game, to learn how to take some of the pressure off of these throws, to learn how to control the game flow and management of the game. I know they have a coaching change in the works. Their coach got fired this past week. Usually that means that there's going to be a pretty significant um, play style change. I can see this going in one or two ways. The one way, I think the Titans are going to buckle down. They're going to try to run the ball more, lean more on their defense, and let Cam figure this thing out slowly instead of trying to rush him into making these throws. And if that were to happen, that means there's going to be less balls in the field. So Eleanor, 6'2", 206 pounds. He showed some kind of rapport with Cam at the beginning of the season. It's his time to shine. There's not really many other options on this team. You got Tyler Lockett, who has been a non-factor, and then you have, other than that, Van Jefferson, who we all know he's a hit or miss kind of player. But Alec Ayanor, I mean, he's one of your top pickups for this week. I don't think you start him this week, but I had to put him in there. Going on to another Tennessee Titan that I really think that you need to put more emphasis on picking him up. He's only 33% rostered. I'm not understanding how this is happening, but he's starting to ramp up more and more. Tajay Spears. We said 2 weeks ago that Tajay Spears was coming back off of IR and that you needed to grab him and hold him. And now we're starting to see him cut into that backfield. He's starting to take more and more carries. The first week he came back, he only had 25% of the snaps. Now, the second week of him being back against the Las Vegas Raiders, they were behind in this game, which feeds more into Spears' play style. But he had 59% of the snaps. We had 5 rushing attempts for 31 yards, 6.2 yards per carry. Love to see that. And he caught all 4 of his targets coming out of the backfield. We are going to see the Titans, like I said, there's 2 ways they can go about doing this with the coaching change. They can go into a run heavy, try to get some play action going, get Cam Ward some more easier throws, underneath, some more screenplays with his running backs, which I strongly think they'll do, or they can go in the opposite direction, which I think will completely kill Cam Ward this season, and that's them going into a more pass heavier offense and trying to give Cam Ward more throws so he can learn how to make more throws. I don't think that's the way to go. So I think they go more into a run heavier offense and they'll get Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard more involved. Try to control the game through the run and playing better defense. Try to control the clock. Try to be more proficient with the ball instead of just trying to run out and make all these crazy throws that Cam's been trying to make and let him learn how to take some of that power off these throws. Tajay Spears continues to cut into that backfield once again. Tony Pollard hasn't been looking very proficient this year. If we pull up Tony Pollard and look at his numbers, let's see, his last game, he had 10 carries, only 34 yards, 3.4 yards per carry. The game before that, he had 14 carries, 67 yards. And before that, 64 yards and only one, two touchdowns for this whole season. And he's pretty much had the entirety of the backfield. We saw that last week, like I said, the game script fit Tajay Spears. So we did see Tony Pollard lose some of that snap share. He went down to 43. But honestly, if we go back to 2023, when Tajay Spears had most of the backfield work, he was putting up some crazy numbers. We had, let's see, week 17, he put up 12 points, and I think he got injured in that game. He put up 12 points in that game with Jacksonville. He had 65% of the snap share. Week 16, he had 61%. He put up 21 points in that game. And then week 15, he had a 27-point game. The guy can play ball, especially out of the backfield when they get him out into open spaces. I think you need to go ahead and hurry up and pick up Tajay Spears. I'm already moving into our next pickup. If you weren't aware, the Buccaneers continue to face injuries with their receivers. Emeka Abuka has been phenomenal this season at receiver, rookie receiver for them, but he went down with a pretty significant injury, and they're thinking that he could be out for sure this week, if not another week after that. And now you already have Chris Godwin missing games. You have Mike Evans still in the IR. You have Emeka Ibuka down. So who do you rely on to move into these roles? Baker Mayfield has been playing lights out. He's been balling on a budget. Baker Mayfield is getting MVP chance. He's playing like the MVP of the league, and you got to crown the man. The man has been balling, and he's not going to let up. So what does that mean? Funny story, Tez Johnson caught his first NFL touchdown this past week. Beautiful 45-yard dot from Baker Mayfield, and Ted Johnson brought it down in the back of the end zone. Beautiful throw, beautiful catch, beautiful play. The thing was, Ted Johnson, after he got up from catching the touchdown, he was hearing MVP, MVP. And for some reason, he associated it with the fans yelling MVP for him for making that catch. He goes to the sideline. He's talking to some of the other players on the sideline. He's like, why are they yelling MVP for me? I haven't done anything this season. And there's like, goofball. He was talking about Baker. They were talking about Baker Mayfield. And he's like, oh, that makes sense. He is the MVP. Tez MVP Johnson, I think they roll him in and making a deep run. We can't forget how close they were to making the Super Bowl last year. They're not giving up. So why not run Ted Johnson into more of a significant role? Let Baker Mayfield get a rapport with him, his rookie receiver, who I must say, look, as a Denver Broncos fan, Bo Nix was shouting very loudly for Ted Johnson. He loves Ted Johnson. Ted Johnson was a significant player in college. We can't forget about that. So I'm thinking that you should grab Ted Johnson going forward. If you need somebody to fill in on those roles of the injuries week in and week out, definitely looking at Ted Johnson. And then another rookie receiver that is starting to pick things up. Luther Burden coming out of Monday night's game. He had 4 targets. He caught all 4 of his targets. The guy, honestly, besides this one week 2 game, he hasn't dropped any balls. Like everything that's come his way, he's caught it. And we saw him in week 3 really take off for 101 yards and a touchdown. In this game, he still got 4 targets, 4 receptions for 51 yards. Yards per target was 12. You love seeing that. And his yards per catch was 12 as well. Love seeing that. They're starting to target him more downfield. He's starting to get more of a significant role. And I'm honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you see the Bears sort of move off of DJ Moore and start, try to move him around. There's a lot of teams needing receivers. DJ Moore isn't getting the ball like he should be getting the ball. DJ Moore is a stud. We can't sleep on him. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears try to get something for DJ Moore. Maybe trade for a pick or something else and let Luther Burden get more of a significant role. So there is that. I'm going DJ Moore this week for sure. Excuse me, I'm going Luther Burden for sure if I can get my hands on him off of waivers this week, or Tez Johnson at receiver. Now moving into our next player, we're gonna go ahead and go tight end. For some reason, Harold Fanning is no, he's only 50% rostered on Sleeper. That means in the other like ESPN and CBS and those other fantasy websites, I'm pretty sure he's even lower rostered there. Harold Fanning is becoming the best friend to Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel cannot get the ball downfield, and all of his throws have been really short and intermediate. Harold Fanning is becoming a target hog. He's not doing he's not doing big yardage and getting 2 or 3 touchdowns a game, but what he is doing in PPR is getting you 7 receptions and 81 yards, 4 receptions, 13 yards. So, 11 points week 5, 15 points week 6. Weeks 4 and 3, that's when everybody started to drop him. That's when he was with Joe Flacco. But what we have to bring up here is David Njoku is now out. David Njoku took a huge hit in his past game. And really, a lot of that was Dylan Gabriel. Like I was listening to Fantasy Footballers earlier, and they were laughing about it as well because he's throwing hospital balls. It's sort of scary what Dylan Gabriel is doing. So we got to be cognizant of that. I'm grabbing Harold Fanning. Can't go wrong. I think the targets stay there until they eventually move into Shadir Sanders, which I do think that's an eventual sooner than later because they want to see what they can get and get the ball downfield. So definitely grabbing Harold Fanning. He's only 50% owned once again in these leagues. Right now, fantasy tight ends are hard to trust. You'll have a tight end go off one week and then the next week he just disappears. Speaking of which, somebody that disappeared that reappeared this past week, you guys know I'm a huge Denver Bronco fan. Can't stress it enough. Evan Ingram was brought in to be the quote unquote Joker role that we always hear Sean Payton talk about. That guy that could get the job done in a lot of different ways. This past week, watching that game, I was really impressed about what Bo Nix was starting to do with Evan Ingram. It seemed like they were starting to get a connection. Bo Nix was starting to look for him on third and longs, trying to get the first downs. He was looking for Evan Ingram. It was a little bit nicer of a matchup with the Jets, but they're starting to get rapport. We're seeing it. Week 6, 6 targets. Week 5, 6 targets. Week 4, 7 targets. And Evan Ingram is catching the ball. The yards per catch, the depth isn't always there, but what we want to see is some actual playing. We want to actually see some targets. Him being used, the utilization rate is happening. The snap rate is still at 47%, but we can't forget that Evan Ingram is coming off an injury. I think that snap rate starts getting better and better as they start getting more of a rapport, and we see Evan Ingram getting more and more involved because going into the playoffs, we are going to need Evan Ingram. Cortland Sutton, as we saw, can disappear in games. Sauce Gardner was all over Cortland Sutton. But Bo Nix also wasn't making the best reads and making the best throws. I'm tough on Bo Nix, man. I'm not really tough on him. I just don't. I need to see more. I'm gonna say that. I was talking to Cody. You guys remember Cody from previous years. I was talking to Cody about Bo Nix and how I'm not gonna buy his jersey. Going into our last few players, quarterbacks. I am super. I am super surprised. I'm gonna pull out somebody else really fast. Jackson Dart. We told you guys about 2 weeks ago to grab Jackson Dart and put him in your, just hold him on your lineups because you have some better days ahead. Jackson Dart is still continuing to impress, and for some reason on Sleeper, he's only owned in 45% of leagues. That is outstanding potential right there you guys can add. He does have my Denver Broncos this week, so it might be a rougher week for him. But the thing is with Jackson Dart is he's using his legs. He's more mobile than what everyone expected. We said that 2 weeks ago when we told you to pick him up, and now you can continue to use him. He had a fantastic game this past week against Philly. He didn't have the big yardage throwing the ball, but he did throw for a touchdown and no interceptions, and he also ran for 58 yards and a touchdown. So you do have that upside with him using his legs. This week he has, like I said, a tough week against Denver, and then the week 8 against Philly. I'm going to tell you guys to go ahead and sit him because the thing is, after they beat Philly this past week, there was a lot of trash talking how, Jackson Dart put belt to ass on the Eagles and how he runs the Eagles and how Jackson Dart outplayed Jalen Hurts and how Cam Scatterboo outran Saquon Barkley and how they don't need Saquon anymore because they got Cam Scatterboo. And I was like, uh-oh, this isn't good when you play that team again in 2 weeks. So I think Philly comes back around and they put belt to ass on them, and they're gonna be like, nah, you still a little brother. And I think so. I'm on the fence about Jackson Dart that week. So these next couple of weeks might be tough. But he then after that he has San Francisco, he has Chicago, he has Green Bay, which is yeah. They started off really hot, but we did see Joe Flacco just sort of burn them this past week, and then Detroit tough. So Jackson Dart has some good days ahead of him. I think that you will have some good potential there. I mean, his ceiling, his floor right now, as we're looking at it, is 16 points. We'll take that. That's QB1 right there. 16 point or about QB2. So you do have Jackson Dart and then some older veterans that have been balling on a budget. You got bye weeks coming up. You got injuries happening to players. Who can you trust? Who can you not? Somebody has a great matchup this week if you need somebody to fill in. Aaron Rodgers does have the Cincinnati Bengals. Only 26% roster. Obviously, we know why. Aaron Rodgers has a floor of 12 points. No, let's go to 11 points and then he has a ceiling of 25 and then 17 this past week. Cincinnati, I really think this will be a higher scoring game than people are expecting because one, Joe Flacco does want to come out and just throw the ball, and two, they're not going to just lay down. The thing is, the Bengals want to stay competitive until Joe Burrow can potentially come back. That's why they made the trade for Joe Flacco. And I do have Joe Flacco as a potential week starter this week. And if not this week, for sure next week against the Jets. But Joe Flacco, we have to talk about it. He got traded at the beginning of last week. He only had 2 to 3 days to practice with the Bengals, learn the playbook, which he learned the playbook extremely quick, and then get some rapport going with his players. What did he do? He came out with 3 days of practice, threw for 219 yards and 2 tutties, no interceptions. You can't beat that. He was only sacked one time in this game, and I think they do the same thing in Pittsburgh. I think they just get the ball to the playmakers, let Joe Flacco air the ball out, and I think this will be a pretty competitive game. Joe Flacco threw the ball 45 times. I wouldn't say, hey, it wouldn't hurt to pick him up again this week if you need to. For sure, next week against the Jets and run them that away. Getting into our last few players, we already went over our receivers, and now we already went over Tajay Spears, Luther Burden, Tez Johnson, Calvin Ridley. I'm telling you guys, I'm staying away from him. He came out with an injury. I'm done with Calvin Ridley. And then my last thing is a player to look to trade for. I know a lot of you guys may be holding on to Travion Henderson in the hopes that he finally breaks out. It's coming. This past week, he got more and more carries. He had 9 carries. He's starting to heat back up again with the injury that we saw to excuse me, the injury that we saw to Antonio Gibson. I think it's only a matter of time before they start really utilizing Travion Henderson. They're starting to trust him again. They want to get him involved. They said it before. Snap is still down. His snap percent is still down to 30. But don't sleep on Travion Henderson. I think we get some potential upside. Buy him cheap because I know there's a lot of frustrated managers out there or owners. Buy Travion Henderson cheap. If you're one of those frustrated owners and maybe your lineup or maybe your record right now is in the dirt and season is looking bad and you need to trade him, don't sell him for too cheap, man. Try to get some kind of upgrade, but I really think Travion Henderson has better days ahead, and that's somebody to keep an eye on. Other than that, man, I appreciate everybody that supports us. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for asking your questions. I will post all of these players into the group again so you guys can read, ask questions from there. And if anything else, man, God bless you all and peace and love out.